This is Platinum Northwest TV News. Good evening and thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Philadelphia Mangoeng. Let's take a look now at the leading top stories. First up, Judge President Hendricks will be presiding over the swearing-in of the Northwest Premier and handing over of the provincial government report. And Khumalo's bid to be reinstated as MK party leader has been dismissed. In the business news, South Africa's business confidence dips as political uncertainty mounts. And in the sports news, Thapelo Morena's brace inspires Bafana to victory over Zimbabwe in Group C. We begin here. The Northwest Province will be holding a swearing-in ceremony of the Northwest Premier-elect, which will be presided over by the Judge President of the Northwest Division, Ronald Hendricks, at the Garona building in Mahikeng. The swearing-in of the Premier-elect will be followed by the handing over of the Northwest Provincial Government's 6th Administration Report by the former acting Premier, Nono Maloyi, to the new Premier, who will thereafter deliver the inaugural speech. In other news, embattled Umkhonto weSizwe Party founder Khumalo has been dealt a blow after the Electoral Court today dismissed his hopes of being reinstated as the party's leader. The Specialist Court handed down judgment electronically, which dismissed his application with punitive costs. The court cited, among other things, that the application constitutes an abuse of the court's process and a waste of judicial economy and the opposing respondents' resources. This comes after Khumalo, the man who registered the political party, urgently turned to the Electoral Court in a bid to have the IEC record of former President Jacob Zuma as the president of the MK party invalidated and set aside. Khumalo wanted the specialist courts to order the IEC to rather record him as the president of the party. The party made a significant showing in the 2024 national and provincial elections, which placed it as the third biggest political party in the country, the lead in KwaZulu-Natal, and the official opposition in Mpumalanga province, just to name a few. In more news, a global outbreak of Mpox disease, formerly known as monkeypox, has been ongoing since 2022. Mpox is a notifiable medical condition which the healthcare workers are required to report all the suspected and confirmed cases. Here's Minister of Health Joe Phaahla with more.
Now, a global outbreak of Mpox was announced by the WHO in 2022. You may remember that just at the end of the COVID pandemic, then there was the monkeypox, now called Mpox outbreak, in various parts of the world. Mpox is a notifiable medical condition which the healthcare workers are required to report all the suspected and especially the confirmed cases. Notifiable medical conditions refer to diseases that are of public health importance because they pose significant public health risks that can result in disease outbreaks or disease epidemics with high case fatality rates, both nationally and also internationally.
So far, South Africa has recorded a total number of 5 laboratory-confirmed cases and 1 death. 2 of these cases were confirmed in Gauteng and 3 in KwaZulu-Natal. The death that occurred is amongst the 2 cases reported in Gauteng. The patient passed on Monday at the Tembisa Hospital.
South Africa is amongst the countries currently experiencing the current outbreak. This infection, which, as I've already said, spreads from one person to another, although also being transmitted from animals. In the current outbreak, we have recorded 5 laboratory confirmed cases, and regrettably, 1 of those have passed away. 2 of these cases were confirmed in Gauteng and 3 in KwaZulu-Natal. The death that occurred is amongst the 2 cases in Gauteng. This patient passed away late on Monday this week, Monday the 10th of June in Tembisa Hospital. All cases and all the patients are males aged between 30 and 39 years without any travel history to other countries which are experiencing outbreaks. So this then says to us that we do have local transmission is not imported cases. All 5 cases were classified as severe cases as per WHO definition, and they were requiring hospitalization. The cases have comorbidities and have been identified also as part of what we regard as key populations, which include men who have sex with men. Thus, the department is reaching out to organizations who are working within the South African National AIDS Council, organizations focusing on the HIV programs, and also working with key populations, in addition to other stakeholders, to implement targeted communication and to intensify awareness about the outbreak and the fact that we can confirm that there is local transmission. One of the patients has been discharged. One has also been discharged home, but for further isolation, being followed up. The 2 other patients are still admitted in hospital. As we said, there were 5 cases. One has passed away, and the other 2 are still in hospital. One is being followed up at home, and the other one is.
In terms of treatment, at the current moment, there is no registered treatment for mpox in South Africa.
However, the World Health Organization recommends the use of an antiviral treatment called tecovirimat. This is an antiviral agent which has shown to be useful in the treatment of mpox, and it's mainly used when patients are severe, and also, as we have indicated, that it gets more severe with patients who are immune compromised, and also in all our 5 cases, the clinical indication is that all of them were immune compromised. So, and especially when the CD4 count is less than 350, then this antiviral agent then is used. Although it's not registered with our South African Health Product Regulatory Authority, SAPRA, the Department of Health has obtained from SAPRA an emergency use approval, which is called a Section 21 approval.
In continental news, Malawi Vice President Saulos Chilima has sadly died in a plane crash along with 9 other passengers. This, according to the country's president, Lazarus Chikwamba, who announced this on Tuesday. The aircraft went missing after it failed to land at the Mzuzu International Airport, about 380 kilometers north of capital Lilongwe. Saulos Chilima has been vice president for the past 10 years. Chakwera announced Chilima's death to the nation and the world. Let's take a look.
The Malawi Defense Force commander has informed me that the search and rescue operation I ordered to find the missing plane that carried our vice president and 9 others has been completed and the plane has been found. And I am deeply saddened and sorry to inform you all that it has turned out to be a terrible tragedy. The search and rescue team has found the aircraft near a hill in the Chikangawa forest, and they have found it completely destroyed with no survivors, as all passengers on board were killed on impact. Words cannot describe how heartbreaking this is, and I can only imagine how much pain and anguish you all must be feeling at this time, as well as how much pain and anguish you all will be feeling in the coming days and weeks as we mourn this terrible loss.
It is understood that on Monday evening, aircraft control had advised the vice president's plane against trying to land and recommended turning back to the capital due to poor visibility. Not long after, the authority lost contact with the aircraft and started a search operation. Earlier on Tuesday, the Malawian Defense Force said that it had deployed drones and at least 200 soldiers to search for the plane at the Chikangwa Forest Reserve, where the signals of its whereabouts were last received. The country will observe a 21-day national mourning for Chilima and other officials killed in the crash. The mourning period, which began on Tuesday, will last until July 1st, according to a statement from the President's office. In news further afield, United States President Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden has been convicted by a jury of lying about his drug use to illegally buy a gun. A 12-member jury in federal court in Wellington, Delaware, found him guilty on all 3 counts against him on Tuesday, making Hunter Biden the first child of a sitting U.S. president to be convicted of a crime. 54-year-old Biden slightly nodded his head after the verdict was read, but otherwise showed little reaction. He then patted his lawyer Abe Lowell on the back and hugged another member of his legal team. U.S. legal analyst Wendy Patrick spoke on how the jury reached the verdict.
That was huge because you had the First Lady in the front row every day. You had all of that media. You had all of the Bidens assembled. But those are optics, not evidence. And when the jurors that have agreed to be interviewed, and we know that at least one has, it really seems like they did exactly that, is they didn't allow the faces in the gallery to dictate their verdict, to influence their verdict, to intimidate them out of talking to the press afterwards. I mean, we got a really good flavor of what went on in that deliberation room. We heard that the first straw poll was split 6-6. So we know it wasn't a slam dunk for them, despite the speed with which they came up with that verdict. So it really seems like they took their job seriously, even though they were in a very friendly jurisdiction to the first family.
After the decision was announced, President Joe Biden said that he would accept the outcome of the case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. The U.S. President and the First Lady are said to be proud of Hunter, who has been sober since 2019. The judge said no date for sentencing, but said the timeline is usually within 120 days. Now, that would place it no later than a month before the November 5th presidential election, in which Joe Biden is seeking re-election. With that said, let's now take a look at the business news. In the business news, according to a top business lobby group, South African business confidence fell to a 10-month low amid political uncertainty following elections 2 weeks ago. A measure of sentiment compiled by the South African Chamber of Commerce as well as industry slipped to 107.8 in May from 108.9 in April and 114.7 in March. The average level of the index for the first 5 months of 2024 was 101.7. It said politicians should take an economy-first approach as they negotiate forming a new government. The election cost the African National Congress its parliamentary majority for the first time since taking power back in 1994, forcing it to negotiate with rivals to form a broad alliance known as a government of national unity. Parliament will reconvene on Friday to elect a president. According to Saki, an economy-first approach should reduce high levels of unemployment and build sustainable and inclusive economic growth. And that's all from the business news. Up next, we take a look at your sports. In soccer news, the game was shaped from the first minute when Ekran Reyners profited from a mistake by Munasashe Garanga and slotted the ball past debutant Zimbabwe goalkeeper, that is Godfrey Chichumba. Nevertheless, the Warriors equalized in the following minute through Tawanda Chirewa. Thapelo Morena then came on at the start of the second half and first struck 10 minutes into the second half before completing his brace on the 76th minute. Now, following the victory, Bafana rose from position 4 to second in Group C as Zimbabwe anchor the standings. For a player who came off the bench and made a huge impact, Morena deserves the plaudits. Here's Bafana coach Pres with more.
First of all, very happy with the result. I think we came a little bit too soon with the 1-0. It was from the beginning of the game, and then 2 minutes later it was 1-1, and the team was a little bit shaken, I think, for the goal of Zimbabwe. So yes, we didn't do what we had to do. We played too much in the center. We didn't use the wings, and yes, Zimbabwe was a few times very dangerous on transition. So second half we correct some things, and I think we saw a much better South Africa the second half. We had many centers even the first half, so I think after the 90 minutes that we deserve this victory, an important victory. I'm also happy having played here in the stadium with a fantastic crowd. You see what a crowd can do. They are behind the players. They have difficult moments, but yes, when you have a crowd like this, you go over the limit, and we saw the second half. More and more we got confidence, more and more we played better. More and more the fans were amused. So fantastic evening.
And that's where we're going to have to leave it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. The team will be back again tomorrow evening. Till then, good night and take care.